Hello out there, sports world. It is the post-Super Bowl hangover, although neither of us are hungover.
I feel like it, but that's different.
That's a whole different reason, man. That's like a whole different thing, man.
No, I'm not high. I'm just fucking tired.
Nah, yeah. But we are here. We are back for the first episode of the postseason. I don't know after today when our next episode will be. I will say that simply because there's not a lot of football or a lot of other things to talk about or go on about. So we may bypass a few weeks and wait and see what comes up next. We may scale back just in terms so that we can, we need our rest too. We'll figure that out, and we'll put out stuff and let you all know what's happening. All right. In the meantime, though, there is a little bit of news before we get to the Super Bowl. Then we'll talk about the Super Bowl. Then we'll talk about our grievances with the Super Bowl. Then we'll talk about the awards ceremony, the NFL awards, who they nominated, and who won, and whether or not they got that right. And then we'll do our own awards, and then we'll wrap for the day. So I don't know how long this episode will be. Probably an hour and something. Hopefully it doesn't take forever, but there are a few things to talk about. And first off, as Chris and I were just talking about before we came on the air, Mike Zimmer is back in the NFL, not as a head coach. He is back with Dallas as their defensive coordinator once again. Because Dan Quinn got tired of waiting for them to fire Mike McCarthy and was like, nah, I'm out. And he went and became the head coach for the Panthers? No, not the Panthers. That's Canales. I don't know. He became the head coach for somebody. I forget who. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Well done.
The Commanders, I believe, actually.
You got there in the end.
Got there in the end. I knew I'd get there. I just didn't know when. All right. But that's one of the big ones. There have been a couple of other, little ones. Nothing major, obviously. But, there have been a few more hirings. I will say that I think the worst injury I've seen in football, one of them at least the most depressing injury happened during the Super Bowl. You want to talk about that real quick?
I mean, if you want to talk about it, that's fine.
Dre Greenlaw?
I mean, I don't know exactly what happened yet. I don't know if we've heard official reports on what happened yet.
I believe it is a torn or ruptured Achilles.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me because the minute I saw it, I was like, that looks like a torn Achilles.
Yep. So, context, it was the second quarter, I believe.
I think so. I think it was near the start of the second quarter.
It was near the start of the second. The 49ers had just finished punting and turning the ball back over to the Chiefs, and the defense is running out onto the field, and Dre Greenlaw takes him, but he's obviously on the sidelines. He's all amped up, ready to go, and he takes about 4 strides onto the field and just falls over like a fish that's just flopping on the deck. Just done. Tore his Achilles running onto the field. Ugh. Not good. That, I think, obviously was one of the major things that affected the outcome. Was it Debo, I believe, also had a minor injury, but would return from it.
Yeah.
He would have a hammy injury, but he refused to stay out and would come back. Anyway, outside of that, there's not a whole lot else to talk about. I don't know. You know, we don't have any clues as to. There haven't been any other trades announced. Nothing major is going on right now. I mean, the baseball world is abuzz with stuff, and the NBA trade deadline is coming up. But I'm not. You know, Chris and I aren't really tuned into the whole hoops world. That's not really our thing. Um, like, I found it surprised that Steven Adams was still playing basketball. Um, but anyway, whole point of all of this is that the only other major news we have is that Morgan Riley of the Toronto Maple Leafs has been suspended 5 games.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, 5 games for cross-checking the Ottawa Senators' Ridley Greig. Greig, right in the head. It happened during the game. He got tired of Greig just being a pest, and cross-checked him right in the face. Did something deserve to happen? Yes. Was it that? No. Punch him. Make him throw the gloves and punch him. Take him with you. Don't cross-check him in the face.
I don't know. Kind of sounds kind of funny, but you know.
I mean,
get
it
it.
kind of is. I think the funny part was everybody squaring off after that, and Austin Matthews, who's like big, gets grabbed by Vlad Tarasenko, and Tarasenko grabs him. And you got to understand, Tarasenko isn't nearly as big as him, and like Austin doesn't do anything at all, nothing. And Mitch Marner skating in, no dance partner, doesn't care, doesn't even look for it, doesn't grab anybody. I think that's the biggest problem that the Maple Leafs have had, is that a lot of those guys, Matthews and Marner and Nylander especially, they came up under coaches that preached them not to fight, not to throw back. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And now that they could, they don't. So everybody knows that you can take advantage of them, and they're not going to do anything. When, you know, you've got other guys who were superstars like Sid and Ovi, they've both had fights. They've both tossed gloves. You have to sometimes. You have to make it known that you cannot just screw with me and that I'm willing to toss gloves and punch you in the face. So, all right. Outside of that, I don't have any other news. Do you have any news?
I don't think so.
All right.
There wasn't a lot of news. I don't think there will be for another week or two before we start really getting into the draft stuff.
Yep, because the draft is in April.
Yep.
So we'll start seeing a lot of draft news in March, and that's when we'll probably start. We'll probably take a couple of weeks off and pick it back up in the middle of March when the draft stuff is in full swing.
Probably something like that.
Sounds about right. All right. So you want to talk about the Super Bowl?
I want to forget it happened.
I kind of do too. You want to run it down for us? Or do you want to rant at the end? Or both?
You know, I didn't catch the whole beginning, so you go ahead and talk about how it started, because it sounds like it was far more boring than how the
It was.
ending
It's the
went.
first Super Bowl in history that ended a quarter 0-0. I mean,
See, I missed that part. I was still driving home from work.
You're lucky, because that was boring. That was very boring. Um, it was boring. It was super boring at the start of the Super Bowl. I was not having a good time watching it. Um, and then the Niners kicked a field goal and went up 3-0. And then some more back and forth. And then the Niners pulled out a razzle-dazzle trick play where they threw the ball out one way and then threw the ball from a wide receiver back across the field to McCaffrey, and Run CMC takes it in like 20-something yards for a touchdown. And I was like, all right, here we go, yeah! The Chiefs would drive the length of the field and kick a field goal right before halftime. It would be 10-3 going into the half.
Yeah, and that was a nice half. Well, it lasted. The second half happened. Mostly boring in the third quarter. Not a whole lot happened. I think the Chiefs respond with a touchdown in the third quarter, or was that the fourth quarter? I think it was.
Oh.
I think it was in the third quarter that they did manage to tie the game back up, but not a lot happened because I remember San Francisco got punt, punt, punt. I think it was
It was
four
a field
punts.
goal and a touchdown in the third quarter for them to actually take the lead.
Yep, and Francisco the entire third quarter basically did a lot of punting.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really move the ball. I can't even tell you how many first downs they got because I think it was like 3 punts in a row where they didn't even have a first down. Like, it was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
The fourth quarter finally happened, and I believe was it Francisco moved down and finally got another touchdown.
Yep, Juwan Jennings.
But then they had an extra point that got blocked.
Yep.
And it looked really weird and confusing.
It did.
And then the Chiefs, I think, moved down the field and got another field goal, which then tied the game up at, what was it, 16-16?
16
And then nothing happened. And then we went into OT.
Nope. There was one more field goal from Moody and one more field goal from Butker with 3 seconds left.
Yeah, that's right. It went 19-19. That's right, at the very end. Then we finally went into OT, which was the first OT we've had with the new rule set.
And basically, the first OT since the Atlanta and New England Super Bowl.
Yep. The new OT rules for postseason is no matter who scores, the other team gets a chance at the ball. So
even doesn't matter if you get a touchdown.
It doesn't matter if you get a touchdown with 2 points or whatever it is. The other team is guaranteed an opportunity at the ball. So basically, the Francisco 49ers did win the coin toss. They elected to receive the ball. They moved down the field pretty good. It looked like they were in prime position to get a touchdown, but unfortunately they were not able to.
Got a holding call that pushed them back.
Yep, got a holding call that pushed them back. They elected for the field goal instead. Hoped their defense would be able to slow or stop the Chiefs to potentially just tie the game again. However, the Chiefs do what the Chiefs do, which is slowly made their way down the field, literally chewing up most of the overtime clock to do so. Not like it mattered, because it just would have went into OT too, and with the same positionings, nothing changes. But still, it was funny watching them with like 10 minutes when they got the ball, eat the entire 10-minute clock moving down the goddamn... Yep. Yeah, it was almost 10 minutes. Yeah, it took them forever. They finally moved all the way down the field, and with 3 seconds left on the clock, they got a touchdown and ended the game. Yeah, that was the Super Bowl. It was mostly boring with some spurts of fun, but mostly boring. And the Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls, and I think
that was the first time in 20 years.
Yeah, I think the last team that did that wasn't it the Patriots?
It was previously? The Patriots.
Yeah. So, yay! I'm not being sarcastic.
Stat-wise, Purdy, 23 of 38, 255, and a touchdown. Jennings, 1 for 1, 21 yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey, 22 carries, 80 yards. Brock Purdy, 3 carries for 12. Christian McCaffrey, 8 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk, 3 for 49. Juwan Jennings, 4 for 42 and a touchdown. Debo, 3 for 33. George Kittle, 2 for 4. Um, Now, McCaffrey did fumble early and lost it. Um, and Darrell Luter Jr. Fumbled and lost it. Defensively, Fred Warner, 13 tackles. Jair Brown, 11 with a pass defense. Eric Armstead had a sack. Javon Hargrave had a sack. Chase Young had a sack. And Jair Brown, 1 interception. On the other side of things, Mahomes, 34-46, 333, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Also ran 9 times for 66 yards. The most of that came in that last OT drive. They did a good job. I will say this for San Francisco. What I saw from their defense most of the game, they did a really good job of not letting him go north and south. You know what I mean? Not getting out of the pocket and not letting him do anywhere. They forced him to go east and west, sideline to sideline, rather than try to make his way downfield. They let up that containment a lot in OT. I think they were tired by then, and they could not corral him by OT. He's just kept escaping, especially on these 3rd and longs. You're just like, how the hell are you letting him do that? Stop! Pacheco, 18 for 59. Travis Kelce, 9 receptions, 93 yards. Mecole Hardman, 3 for 57 and a touchdown. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 3 for 20 and a touchdown. Overall, Mahomes fumbled twice, recovered 1, didn't lose either of them. Pacheco had a fumble in the red zone that kept the Chiefs from scoring early. Richie James fumbled and recovered. Rashee Rice did fumble. Watson had a recover. Karlaftis had a recovery. And Watson had a recovery. Defensively, Nick Bolton, 13 tackles. Justin Reed had 9 and half a sack. Karlaftis had a half a sack. No interceptions for their defense. Butker, obviously, 4 for 4. I will say this. Jake Moody's first field goal was 55 yards, which was the longest made field goal in NFL history. Until, not NFL, in Super Bowl history. Until Harrison Butker beat him with a 57-yarder in the same game. Poor Jake Moody. All right. Thoughts?
I hated it.
Do you want to rant?
Not really. Just I hated it.
Because I know you were very, very verbose and upset right after it happened.
Well, yeah, because I'm just tired of the Chiefs, and I'm also tired of just everything around the Chiefs being fishy as fuck, and either people will agree with me or they won't. Is what it is. To me, it feels like the NFL is selling a narrative, and they're doing a very good job at selling that narrative, and everyone's either buying it or people are finally starting to see that something feels wrong.
And now we do want to point out that I think the narrative is scripted, but I disagree with the terminology because of what scripted implies. I prefer the term rigged because that's a lot simpler. You're trying to get a predetermined victor. And the method upon which the victory is inconsequential in the end. It's that this specific team needs to win, and that is an easier objective to achieve from a specific standpoint. Scripting would imply a level that I don't think is potentially able to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I think it could be done. The difference is that it's just much more difficult to do.
It would be a lot more difficult, and you'd have to have a lot more people to keep their mouths shut. generalistically, if you have a conspiracy like that,
If you have a lot of money, you can typically. That's the one thing as I would say is that when it comes to that, it just takes a lot of money typically, and most of the time, buying silence is actually not as expensive as people think it is at times.
yeah, but I'm more worried
But
because there's
that's not the
always
point.
the more people that know, the more chance there is that there'll be a leak because somebody will feel slighted.
And to be fair, it doesn't take nearly as many people as you might think. Like if you wanted to get exact plays and numbers, it would be difficult. But let's be honest, like if you really wanted to go down that road, you'd have to get the officials, which is already pretty much under your book and thumb anyways. You'd have to get the coaches to potentially agree to it with enough pay, which would not be that difficult. And probably just QBs and a couple star players, and that's really all you'd really need to likely get an outcome that you want. Um, I'm not saying that's what they're doing. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying if they wanted complete control, it wouldn't be as bad as you think it would be, but it still would be more people than would be necessary to just get the basic of this is
Mm-hmm.
the outcome we want
Because with the
versus
outcome you want,
this
all you
exact
really
outcome,
need
you
are
know?
some refs.
Yeah.
You don't even need all the
Refs and
refs.
you need a couple refs and maybe potentially the coaches, a coach or a QB or something like that, like one of the players. Like it wouldn't be that bad to get a couple of like one or two other people involved in that too. But either way, yeah,
Exactly. I honestly like not the thing that I want to point out because it got pointed out on McAfee today, and I think it's an odd stat for those of you. I know there's going to be a bunch of Kansas City defenders. You're never going to see this podcast, so I'm not worried about it. There are three Super Bowls. The three that they've won recently, they've had 0 holding calls. Like, if it were 1 or 2, I'd be okay with it. But 3 full games like that, no holding? For reference, the
yeah,
Niners were called for holding at least 3 times last night. Or
yeah.
Sunday night. Yeah. So, I guess that's kind of like you look at it and you see all the weird penalties that they sometimes get, and you just kind of go, nah, something doesn't add up. And I don't disagree with that narrative. What's the old statement? Something's rotten in the state of Denmark?
I have no idea.
Yeah, something don't feel right. Something don't add up there, Slim. But yeah, that's what we have to say about the Super Bowl halftime show. I didn't watch it. I muted it.
I mean, I watched it. It was just Usher being Usher. I
I
mean,
don't. That's
either
the
you
thing I think
like his
about
music or
Usher.
you
I
don't.
don't care about Usher.
It was fine.
Was that
I mean,
Alicia
he's
Keys I
got.
saw on the show?
I think so.
I
Yeah,
think I looked
because
over and I
they've
saw somebody
collabed.
playing the piano and I was like, "Is that Alicia Keys?"
They've collabed before, and then there was also the collab with Ludacris at the end too. Like, it's fine.
And there was another woman on there too.
Yeah,
And
I forget who
apparently
that
he
one
took
was.
his shirt off.
For a short time, to be honest, I thought it was a bit excessive too, and then I noticed that the next scene he was in a completely different suit, so I was like, he probably just did that because he had to change clothes
Yeah.
anyways too. So whatever. It's fine. It was fine. It's the epitome of it's fine. I mean, it wasn't like outstanding. I didn't think it was great. I didn't love it, but it was more of like a. He's got 2 songs that I kind of enjoyed. I heard them and I went, all right, I'm good.
Yeah, my understanding though is a lot of people said it's if you compare it to the recent acts and the recent ones they've had, this one was a lot better.
Weekend was better in my opinion. That was 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think the Weekend was better.
I don't even know who that is.
Another black. I would say hip hop, but not quite hip hop. I mean,
Pop Hop?
No. He does. kind of fusion of like pop and maybe R&B and I don't know. He's a little bit of rock involved. He's just kind of a fusion genre guy. But I think his music was pretty good. The difference is that a lot of people forget about it because it was during COVID. But I think it was a better performance. Like it was more entertaining in my opinion. But that's just me.
Like I always want them to do some kind of like I half expected them to ask Taylor to do it.
I would have shot my head out if that happened. I'd have been like, no, we don't need that. We don't need that.
At any rate, no, I always wanted to do like a rock band or something. Like give me like the Foo Fighters or something. One of these years.
They have in the past. In fact, I think the Foo Fighters have done one in the past. I know Aerosmith definitely did one, but that was a while ago. And that was definitely past the prime when they did that.
Yeah, and that's the problem. They've done like the Rolling Stones before, but it was the Rolling Stones way past their prime. Nobody cares anymore. Like
I am fairly positive the Foo Fighters did one, or at least I remember them doing one.
There was, I think there was a.
That was a while ago. Either that or they were collabed on one. I forget.
No, there was a big thing for them to do one year because of where it was, and it was the Foo Fighters' home area, and then they went with someone else entirely. Is what I think you might be remembering. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that like, give me something that's like a little bit rock, a little bit current, a little bit pop, and don't make it an act that's like 10 years past its prime, 20 years past its prime. Nobody cares. Stop that.
Yeah, I don't. The thing is, they're trying to lean into what they think is their audience currently, and they're trying to hit that younger kind of 20 to 30 crowd, and it's just
Usher is a 40-year-old crowd.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like last year's was really bad in my opinion. It was not good. And the year before was, like I said, The Weeknd, and I thought that was pretty decent. But he was still like, I could understand how people like who are older would be like, I don't want to listen to this. This is stupid. I don't like this. And Usher is like kind of almost in the in between where it wasn't bad, it wasn't great, it was okay.
And I can get that. Like,
but I don't really like want to see like a Beyonce either. Like that's just not the type of music I listen to personally. But it's also just
some of
like
her music I like, but for the most part I don't care for 90% of it.
Yeah. And then they did a Katy Perry one. What was that, a couple of years ago? I guess it would have been several years ago now. But like they did one like a Katy Perry one, and that was just like, eh.
Who cares?
I think Black Eyed Peas did one, even if I remember right. But again, they were past. They were by the time they did it, it was like several years past when they were actually considered popular. Like I don't know, man. But that's the problem with some of these Super Bowls. Is I also know that they do a bidding for who gets to do the halftime show like 2, 3, 4 years in the future, kind of thing. So it's like, by the time a band gets approval for it, they're sometimes considered irrelevant at times. It's like, it's kind of weird. It's weird.
That is kind of a problem. Yes.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
But yeah, I kind of like, I get it. I get what they're attempting to do. They're just, I don't think they're hitting that demographic that they want to. So, I'm sure they'll get it eventually.
Maybe, but here's the thing also, when it comes to something like that, you can't please everybody.
No, you cannot.
So, I get it. There's probably going to be plenty of people who really enjoyed this halftime show in comparison to us, and that's fine.
We're a pair of white dudes. I don't think that show is meant for us.
No, not really.
We're also, you're in your 30s and I'm in my mid-40s now. I think I'm just... That's not really my thing.
It's closer to my demographic, but it's still not quite the type of music that I personally listen to, so...
Like, don't get me twisted. I like a little bit of, like, R&B and rap and stuff, but, like... Definitely not what I commonly listen to.
Yeah, I feel that.
All right. Moving on?
I mean, we eventually have to get to it.
All right, let's talk about the NFL awards, shall we? You want to do that?
I mean, you got the list, so if that's what you want to do, we can do that.
All righty. NFL awards. Start at the bottom and work our way up here. All right. Coach of the Year. The finalists were Dan Campbell of the Lions, John Harbaugh of the Ravens, DeMeco Ryans of the Texans, Kyle Shanahan of the Niners, and Kevin Stefanski of the Browns. The winner, by one vote, was Kevin Stefanski of the Browns.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, to me it was really a two-horse race. You could have included Dan Campbell in there, but like everybody expected the Lions to do good this year. So it wasn't really
Not as well as they did, but they did expect them to be good.
So both Ryans and Stefanski, I think, ran away with that race. Especially considering where both teams finished last year. I mean, if you look at the Texans, they were hot garbage last year, but they were intended to be hot garbage. And then this year they made the playoffs and won a playoff game. Stefanski lost his superstar running back like week 2. Had to juggle quarterbacks, had to put up with Deshaun Watson not playing particularly great and then going out for the year. And then he lost both his backups and had to bring off the couch Joe Flacco, who somehow led them to a playoff appearance.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't say that they got it entirely wrong. You can make the argument for Ryans all day long, 100%. But for my money, I think what Stefanski did is more impressive.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it just for almost any other team, you'd look at that and go, "Well, that's the death kill. That's the death kill. That's the death kill." It happened to him so many times to the point where you're like,
"What are they, a zombie?
How? How are you still alive?
How are you still good?"
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know how many times they got written off this season. You're like, oh, well, there goes their season. Huh, they're still winning. Ah, no, that's it right there. That's the nail. Well, shit, they're still winning.
Yeah.
What the hell? So yeah, coaching through that, Cleveland, you got a real one.
Imagine if you actually had a fucking QB.
Imagine if you actually had yeah. Imagine if fucking you didn't lose Chubb the second game of the year.
That too.
I mean, even if your QB goes down, then you still got Chubb. Oh, I think you would have gone a lot further in the playoffs.
Probably.
All right. Comeback Player of the Year. The finalists: Joe Flacco, Cleveland Browns; Damar Hamlin, who suffered the heart attack on the field last year, of the Buffalo Bills; Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers; Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams; and Tua Tagovailoa of the Miami Dolphins. Runaway winner, Joe Flacco.
Yeah, the other ones just never made a lot of sense to me because, like, in comparison, like, they had good years last year, or they were at least had partial good years last year. It wasn't really a full send-off, right? So it's like Flacco in comparisons like has been irrelevant for the last couple of years. So it's like it wasn't even a competition.
Mm-hmm. You can make the point that Tua was out with his concussions a lot last year, and people thought
but he
he
still
might be
played
done.
well when he was playing, you know.
Yeah, but also there was the narrative of he's going to be done with football. He's going to have to retire. I don't think that
but
was
the
ever
thing is,
a
I
real
told
thing.
you, yeah, I was gonna say, I remember talking to you about that last year, and I specifically told you that that's just not happening.
No.
It's just
Stafford was out a lot last year.
exactly, yeah.
But I get also, and like Baker looked like he might be an irrelevant player and a bust, and then he came back this year and led the Buccaneers to the playoffs and stuff. And I get that. Then
Yeah.
Hamlin overcoming that heart attack on the field. Yeah, okay, I get all of that. But
That I
he was
get that,
kind
but
of
then
an
like he kind of did
irrelevant
nothing this
factor
year.
for most of
Yeah.
the season. So Flacco ran away with it, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I think the list that I had the most anger with, because I feel like there were people left off. And some people that were on there that just I don't think statistically stacked up. And that is Defensive Rookie of the Year. Your finalists are Will Anderson Jr. of the Houston Texans, Jalen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles, Joey Porter Jr. of the Steelers, Kobe Turner of the LA Rams, and Devin Witherspoon of the Seattle Seahawks. And your winner would be Will Anderson Jr. Now, the winner is correct. I am not even mad about that. I'm less certain about JPJ and Turner being on this list. I would have liked to have seen, and this is, again, homerism, but I think he had a great year. Ivan Pace Jr., I think, really should have been on that list somewhere. But I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Makes me a little upset. But for a guy who was a UDFA, yeah. By the way, I do agree that Will Anderson Jr. was the right pick to win that.
Yeah, Will Anderson had like his first month or so was a little rough, but man, he kicked on pretty quick on that second half of the season and just decimated people.
Oh yeah, he was a monster for the second half of this season. Loved watching him play. So much fun. Okay. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Finalists: Jahmyr Gibbs of the Lions, Sam Laporta of the Lions, Puka Nacua of the LA Rams, Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons, and C.J. Mother effin' Stroud of the Texans. Winner, runaway winner, C.J. Stroud. Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but I think the other argument should have been Puka, like no question. Like,
oh yeah.
You break as many records as that guy does, and you still don't win Rookie of the Year is kind of crazy.
I can get the argument for Puka, and I think if CJ, I think if the Texans just missed the playoffs, it's Puka. Puka wins it. But where they
especially in
made the
that
playoffs
playoff game they had, Jesus, he was a one-man team basically.
I'm not saying like Puka is gonna be a dude for a long time.
Oh yeah,
that's a gamer, right?
I mean, he's basically. I don't know how you. Like, it was funny for the longest time. I kept being like, "Man, how do you replace Cooper Kupp?" And then they get Puka, and I'm like, "Oh, well,
there you go.
I guess that's how you do it."
It's funny. I believe the Vikings have some guy named Samson Nacua on our team.
No relation, I assume.
I don't know if there's relation or not.
It's probably not.
I would laugh though. Oh, nice.
Yep.
Alrighty. Defensive Player of the Year. Your finalists: Deron Bland, cornerback for the Cowboys, Max XX Crosby of the Las Vegas Raiders, Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns, Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys, and TJ Watt of the Steelers. Your winner, Myles Garrett. And
Jesus,
this has caused outright the most fan backlash of any of the other awards.
Which I don't understand. It makes so much sense. Myles Garrett is just by far... Listen, I can understand why some people are like, but TJ Watt. Yeah, the Steelers squeaked into the playoffs, won. And Myles Garrett had a far less worthy offense and still managed to take that team into the fucking playoffs.
What it is, what it is you look at the raw statistics and you would give it to TJ. But then you have to take into account, because even Micah Parsons said it. He said, look at it. Look at the amount of double teams that Garrett fought through and still put up those statistics.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at the amount of respect he commanded from other teams, and he still put up those numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
No, there's no comparison.
The only reason that defense was able to be as good as it was is because he was constantly pulling people to his side of the field to force the offensive line to leave gaps for the defense. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is what it was, man.
And like I saw it at first, and I was like, nah, you can't, nah.
Yeah, it just don't get me wrong. TJ had a good year too, but like it wasn't. He didn't. The difference is when I look at the two, I go, yeah, he had a good year, but this guy commanded his team into playoffs. I don't look at the Steelers and go, yeah, they made playoffs because TJ Watt played well. I just they barely made it in, and it was because Mason Rudolph managed to actually play fucking 3 games in a row that was really good.
That were
If he
decent, yeah.
if any of those were bad, that team would not have made playoffs.
Rudolph is
He
a
didn't
strong
pull
arm
that team into
quarterback.
playoffs like Myles Garrett did. Like it just
All
it is what
right.
it is.
But yeah, I 100% agree. I do think they got this right. I wavered a bit, but the more I looked at it, the more I went, yeah, they got that right. Alrighty. Offensive Player of the Year finalists: Tyreek Hill for the Miami Dolphins, Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys, Christian McCaffrey, Run CMC for the 49ers, and Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. Winner, Run CMC.
The only other one that made sense to me there actually what might have been CD Lamb because he was such a integral part to that back half of the Cowboys in general, and he put up such crazy games. But
Tyreek as well,
yeah,
though.
Tyreek did, but I think he would have had a better vote if he hadn't gotten injured. If he
Yeah, he
hadn't been
kind of
out
got
for a couple
injured near
games.
the end there, and you could see that it affected him the
Yeah.
last like 4 games of the season.
I think if he would have continued with the pace he was on, I think he would have been more in that conversation. But due to that injury, I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Sad.
think CD would have been a better vote if he would have actually like gotten the ball thrown to him in the fucking playoffs.
Oh, man, Cowboys fans, you have a gripe.
Oh yeah. And then normally I'd be bringing up Lamar, but like, there's no need to do that.
Because MVP finalists: Josh Allen of the Bills, Lamar of the Ravens, CMC of the Niners, Dak Prescott of the Cowboys, and Brock Purdy of the Niners. Winner, Lamar.
I just I don't disagree with that. It makes sense in a lot of different ways.
I can
Obviously,
see a flip flop on that, but I also understand where you're coming from.
yeah.
Either way,
That dominant form is just hard. And for people who like remember that Ravens team is actually not stacked. Like it had some good players, but it wasn't as stacked. Like you look at the 49ers, they're stacked. You look at the Ravens and you go, they got some good pieces. And then there's Lamar, who elevates that entire team to being exceptional.
and here's what I
Like,
want everybody to realize: they finished off that season without their starting running back because Gus Edwards was not their starter. J.K. Dobbins was, and he got hurt
Yep.
early. And without without Lamar's security blanket tight end of Mark Andrews, and somehow managed to finish it with an unlikely tight end named Isaiah Likely.
Yeah. And Zay Flowers happened to be good, which is great. And they got Odell, but Odell was, no offense to Odell, just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that that roster isn't that great. Lamar is what makes that roster great.
And I
As
can
much as I like
completely, yeah,
Christian McCaffrey, you can't deny that he's got so many tools around him that allows him to be exceptional. Because he doesn't have to put in as much work because, you know, defenses aren't just looking solely at Christian, right? Where on the Ravens, they have to be constantly on Lamar 24/7, and when you're not, you see games where he just runs all over the field and fucks your face basically. Like it, it's hard not to look at Lamar especially this season and go, yeah, he didn't deserve it. Like, I think there's a couple, like I said, there's a couple other players who played really well, but it's hard not to look at what happened with this season with Lamar and say that he did not deserve that MVP.
yeah. I can 100% get where you're coming from on that. All right, our awards list. You ready?
I got some interesting choices on here that you're probably going to disagree with, so let's go.
I don't have anything like that. Well, I have some interesting choices. We'll start with the obvious. We'll start with the highest award, our MVP of the season. Go ahead.
I actually agree with the league. It's Lamar Jackson.
I
I'm
also
not
have Lamar. I had
like,
CMC for a while, but I was like, the more I thought about it, the more you're right, and the more without Lamar, the Ravens don't even make the playoffs.
yeah, not at all. Not even close. Not even close.
So
Yeah,
yeah, Lamar absolutely. The league got it right, and Lamar had one of those seasons where you just go, "What did I just watch?"
and then you get sad watching that playoff game.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's do the opposite. Who was your least valuable player this year?
So I gave you a hint as to who it would be last time, or last. I shouldn't say last time. I think it was literally yesterday. Um, my least valuable player is a kicker, and his name is Chad Ryland, for the New York Patriots. Would you like
New
to know
York
his?
Patriots?
Yeah, New York Patriots. New England Patriots. Fuck you. Would you like to guess what his field goal percentage was?
238.
64% of his field goals were
Oh,
were,
so
were
way
hits.
better than what I thought. I thought 23%.
Yeah, that's still really bad for kickers.
Oh, that's
though.
horrible. That's a non-usable kicker.
Yeah, exactly. Like, basically at that point you're going, hey, we'll just go for it on all the fourth downs. Fuck it. By the way, his beyond 50 percentage was 50% because he only did 2 of those and made 1.
So I looked at a bit of different criteria than you did for LVP.
Fair enough.
I looked at guys that are getting paid the big money and not producing, or that lost jobs this season. So I actually had. Let me give you the guys that were my finalists. One of my finalists is a wide receiver, and he absolutely vanished the back half of this year, and that his name would be Stephon Diggs.
Which I understand why you would choose that, but at the same time, he still brought value in the fact that the defenses was still covering him, right? So there's still some value there.
He is not my LVP.
I know, and that's why I'm arguing as to why, like,
The next one is a quarterback, who lost his job to someone else after he got his coach fired, and that would be Jimmy G of the Las Vegas Raiders.
I can understand that, but the problem is that you didn't really get to see enough of him to really know. Like, he played okay, just not great.
And then
it's deserving of that, you know?
Then there is my LVP.
All right.
This is a guy who lost his job after a new coach was brought in specifically to help him as a player, and the massive fucking contract that he is under.
Uh-huh.
And you probably can guess by now, my LVP of this year goes to the Denver Broncos, Russell Wilson, because he's also potentially going to be out from Denver this year.
Yeah. I've heard rumors of him going to the Falcons, which would be hilarious.
I've heard a lot of rumors about where he might go. The Falcons, the Vikings. I've heard everything. Yeah. So, but if you look at the amount of money they're paying him and the amount of production that they didn't get from him and the Broncos' overall crap record, it's hard for me to pick anybody other than him as the least valuable player. I had initially thought about either Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson on here, but both of them got hurt early enough that I was like, I can't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, literally, Aaron Rodgers was down week 1. Like, you can't really.
Rodgers had like 4 plays. Watson made it maybe half the season, and even then, he didn't even start in the beginning few games because he was injured coming out of camp. Exactly. And I didn't want to give it to like Joe Burrow either. Like, I tried to avoid people who were injured. So the only reason that Watson was considered is because the Browns still have to give up a first-round pick this year to the Texans
That's
as part of
true.
that deal.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's horrendous. But I can't like had he finished out the season and looked bad, he probably would have supplanted Wilson just because of that. But
Potentially, yeah.
he got injured, and I don't know what would have happened, so I cannot
Yeah,
say that
we
that's
can't
fair.
assume. Yeah.
So, Russell Wilson, congratulations, you're gonna take home the least valuable player on my list.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, he did look better this year than he did last year. It
A
still wasn't
little,
good.
yeah, but not enough for what he's getting paid.
No,
It didn't
still,
justify
still
that
bad.
paycheck.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It still looked bad.
All right. The most improved player this season.
Most improved. So I chose an interesting candidate. I thought about several different candidates, to be fair. I wasn't sure exactly which one I would go with, but I went on one that I thought was interesting because it showed a lot of promise into the future of said player, and it made a lot of sense in my mind that I think most people would agree with. So my most improved player this year is actually Kyler Murray. And it's not because he was super improved on the field, but it's because he super improved that attitude, which could make future look amazing.
I have him for a different award, but I can understand where you came from. Um, my most improved player this year is a guy that got written off over the past couple of seasons. Um, got traded away from the team that drafted him. Everybody thought he was going to get a fresh start. Didn't, got cut, wound up going to another team, and got signed on a 1-year prove-it deal this year, and it's going to be Baker Mayfield. This is a dude who everybody wrote off. And then you have to succeed Tom Brady. Oh, how do you fill those shoes? And he came out and he played his butt off. He took steps forward. And I liked what I saw this year of Baker, and I think the Bucs need to do everything to keep that Baker in the building. They need to let him bake.
Don't get me wrong, I'll bring Baker over the Vikings. I'll be happy with that.
I would absolutely like if we don't want to draft anybody and they let him walk, absolutely sign his ass. I would be very happy with that. All right. Who was your most disappointing team this season?
So, I was jumping around. I had thoughts of teams like the Jets, obviously, because let's be honest, the high you were expecting was not what you got. And that is disappointing, but I can't necessarily. I didn't feel fair giving them that award because it was due to injuries, right? Especially to Aaron Rodgers. So is that really deserving of most disappointing? So instead, I thought about a team that I was still high on, that I thought should have made playoffs, didn't make playoffs. No reason that they shouldn't have made playoffs. They did last year. What the fuck happened? And that back half of their games just, they stunk to all good heaven, and it made me very upset.
I wonder
The
if we have the
Jaguars.
same team. We do.
The fucking Jaguars,
We
dude.
do.
I just couldn't believe what I was watching. That team had every right to make playoffs, especially based on how that first half of the season went. And just the back half was like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
And then you got to talk about it though, because they tried to improve from last year. They brought in Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
They got all these other players,
And it was working. It was. That's the problem. Was.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also have the Jaguars. Now let's see if we both have the same most surprising team this year.
So, the team that I have as my most surprising team, I had a couple options. Obviously, the Texans could have been easily were one of my finalists, right? Because, like, I thought they'd be good. Not that good, right? But I think there's a different team that I gave it to. And the reason why I give it to this different team is because despite all the odds of what was expected of them, they continued to trudge through all of their issues and all of their problems and still make playoffs when They had no right to be there, and it's the Browns.
That's not bad. That's not bad. I'm not mad at that one. You have a good point. I, however, did go in the obvious direction. I did pick Houston because you finished.
You were much lower on them than I was.
I was. I think I had them like 30th overall. Like seriously, like they were still in my 30s at the beginning of the season, and then they made the playoffs and won a playoff game. I thought they might be. I had hoped they would be better than last year. I didn't think they'd be playoff good this year. I thought they would be still the bottom of their division, but they're not a doormat anymore. You can't count on a win against them. Nope. I thought it was going to take them a year or two to gel, but they came right out the door and barnstormed you. And I did not see that coming. Alrighty, let's give out our Peyton Hillis Award for the most regressed player.
This one hurt me a little bit. Because I had to really think about who I thought would be the most regressed player based on how last year went. But I finally fell on a very obvious one in my book. And I don't know if you'll probably agree with me once you hear it. I don't know if you would have picked the same person. But this was a guy last year that was so good at his job that everyone thought that this team didn't need to worry about this position ever again for like the next couple years, right? This guy was so good. Unfortunately, it appears that coming off of whatever injury he had really ruined him completely to the point where I'm not sure what this team is going to do going forward because they found another player from a different team that slotted right into their offense, played exceptionally well, and basically took the starting job for himself. And so, if you haven't figured out yet by any context clues, my most regressed player is Damon Pierce. That guy played so well last year that you thought there was no way that he was ever going to lose that starting job. Sustains an injury, comes back, gets supplanted by
Devin Singletary.
Singletary, who played really well, and even to the point where Damon Pierce came back, they tried to push him into the starting lineup, and it just didn't work. Singletary easily took that position over and was the guy.
So for me, I looked at it a little differently. I didn't just look at last year. The player that I chose didn't have a great stat last year, but I didn't blame him because the year before he'd actually been good. And I thought maybe the coordinator that they brought in, just that wasn't good. That didn't work. That wasn't working. The head coach is more of a defensive guy, so they brought in the wrong coordinator. So they brought in a different one this year, and it still didn't work. And he still got supplanted by a backup. And in case you haven't figured out who I'm talking about, Mac Jones.
Yeah.
You win my Peyton Hillis Award this year just by virtue of having a pretty good rookie year and then just following it up with two stinkers and being absolutely unplayable. And losing your job to a guy named Bailey Zappi.
Fair.
Alrighty. Our Hard Luck Award. This is the award that we give out to a person or team that has had just the worst luck. Nothing went right for them this year, and you think they're probably a good player, but just everything, just none of it worked right, and you feel bad for them.
So I am going for the obvious choice here. There is a couple obvious ones, but I'm going with one of the more obvious choices, and I'm going with Aaron Rodgers / the Jets. Listen, like, you just gotta feel bad for them. They thought they had their QB, they thought they had everything lined up. 4 plays later, he's down. Shit. Even if you go for the other perspective of Aaron Rodgers, you're like, finally, he's away from the Packers. He's on a team that's trying to build around him, give him what he wants, give him good receivers, and he's injured. Like, no matter how you look at it, that's depressing.
Mm-hmm.
That's really depressing.
100% that's depressing. I went with a different quarterback. Um, and it's because we saw last year what we thought was the beginning of a great quarterback wide receiver tandem. And I was excited for it. You were excited for it. They won some games late last year off of this tandem, and you were like, oh, this is all right. We're starting to see it now. This is going to be good. And next year, he won't be a rookie. He'll have his full season ahead of him. Yeah. Kenny Pickett. You had to suffer through the beginning of Matt Canada and his inept play calling for you and George Pickens. And then you got hurt, and it looked like you might be ready to go again at the end of the season, and they didn't play you. So you are the recipient of my That Sucks Hard Luck Award. All right. Our next award is kind of the opposite of that. It's the Perseverance Award. Somebody who just kept getting knocked down but was like, I didn't hear no bell. Person or team that went through that. There's an obvious contender.
There's a couple obvious ones.
I wonder if you took the obvious one.
There's a couple obvious ones, and I took the one that I kept saying was one of my favorite teams to watch, or one of my favorite black horses ever in the entire league for the entire year. I chose the fucking Rams. Come on, of course I chose the Rams. Like they kept getting injuries with Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford and gosh knows who else was injured on that team because it was a lot of people, and they still continued to trudge forward and make playoffs and look damn good doing it.
So, I chose a player again here. Because you could also go with, like, the Browns. That's another good one.
You could. I already gave him the most surprising, which is why I didn't do that.
Yeah. I went with a player here, though. And to me, this is a player who had to hear about how immature he was and how he wasn't ready and how he didn't deserve the money he was about to make. And then he blew out his ACL. And he had to go through a grueling long process. Couldn't even start the season with the team. Didn't come back. Wasn't even sure he was going to play this year. Got made fun of for wearing a crop top jersey at practice.
To be fair, it was an ugly ass jersey.
And still came back, looked more mature, acted more mature, took responsibility for his mistakes, and seems, in my mind, to have justified that contract and formed a very, very good bond with his new head coach, and that is Kyler Murray. Congratulations on persevering through all the negativity that surrounded you, and all the jokes about Call of Duty, and all the jokes that you had to sit through about, and all the bad talk about how you don't watch film, and you're not a player, and you're not a leader, only to come back and prove everybody wrong.
To be fair, that's only because Call of Duty is bad this year, so, you know.
Good job. Alrighty, now we're going to move into something easy. We're going to move into the easy parts. Our NFC Offensive Rookie of the Year. I know who you're going to choose, and I probably have the same person, because there's only one person who deserves to be there for the NFC Offensive Rookie of the Year. You want to say it together?
I mean, I assume that you have the same person I do.
I hope I have the same person as you do, considering the amount of records this person broke this year.
Of course.
Puka.
It's Puka and Nacua.
Nacua.
Yeah, it's absolutely Puka Nacua.
Yeah, there's no question.
Not even close.
No, nobody even comes
not
close.
Even close. Like at first, I thought about Jordan Addison. I was like, he did pretty good, and then I remembered Puka was like, no, it's Puka.
No. Alrighty, NFC Defensive Rookie of the Year.
This one hurt me a little bit, but I still put it down, even though I know it's right and I didn't like it. He plays for an Eagles. His name's Jalen Carter.
You went with Carter, huh?
I did go with Jalen Carter.
That's not entirely
Let's be honest. he played really damn well. It's hard not to be like he was one of the top dogs for the defense.
You're not wrong. I, however, allowed my blatant homerism to be on display, and I'm giving it to Ivan Pace Jr. The haters. The haters.
He was definitely a finalist. I just don't think. What? Returning? Oh, okay. She literally kicked him in the room.
Wow, must have made her mad.
Oh, yeah. What'd you do? What'd you do? Now you're just sitting there dazed on my bed. Confused as to why you're here now.
What happened? Where am I?
That's pretty much what he's doing right now. He's like, what the fuck? How did I get in here?
So yeah, no, to me, Ivan Pace Jr. I love him. I think he's great.
Biased. I thought about it, but I was like, I can't do that.
I'm
That's
absolutely.
too biased.
I will. Like I said, blatant homerism. I will absolutely admit to it. I don't think there's a question about the AFC and offensive and defensive rookie of the year. I think
probably got the same ones.
We should, because they both play for the Texans.
They both play for the Texans.
Okay, then we got the same ones. It's Stroud. It's obviously Stroud and Anderson.
Stroud
Jr.
and Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're not even going to go into that. We've already talked about that. The NFL got those right.
Yep.
All right. The Ryan Leaf Award. This is awarded to a player who it doesn't have to be picked this last draft. They could have been picked several drafts ago, but somebody who was picked high up and just at this point you're going to put the bust label on them. They're done.
Well, so this player I'm not fully committing to the bust yet, but because they were just drafted last year, to be fair, so they were only drafted recently. They still have time to learn. I'm not ready to throw the bust at them yet, but like based on how I rated them going into the draft and what I got and saw as production this year, draws me a lot of concerns, and they'll have to make a big step forward next year for them to not be labeled as a potential bust. And it hurts me to say this because this was like my number one wide receiver going into the draft, and it's Quentin Johnston.
Ooh.
That guy had so much potential and so much everything, and to see what he did with the Chargers looks fucking atrocious. Like, it just does. Now, is that on the Chargers? Is that on him? I don't know. That's why I don't want to quite call him a bust quite yet. But, like, this was a really bad year in comparison to, like, people who got picked after him, like Zay Flowers, who clearly was ready to go. Jordan Addison, clearly ready to go. Like,
Puka Nacua
even. Like, and you couldn't figure it out. You're one of the biggest guys there. You have huge arm reach. You're tall as fuck. Like, what's going on? What's going on? It concerns me. So you'll have to have a big year next year for me to not want to call you a bust.
Mm-hmm. All right. The player I chose is a couple of years into his career at this point, but where you were drafted and the hopes that were put upon you and the flashes you showed in college especially, you should be way better than this. And you're not. In fact, you're so much a bust at this point in your career.
I'm trying to figure out where the bird went for a second because I couldn't find him.
I think he was in the cage last I saw.
Yeah, he's hiding at the bottom of his cage.
Okay.
He's being salty.
Oh, he's being sulky?
Yeah.
All right. In fact, you're so much a bust that not only did your team bring in a veteran QB to replace you, but your own owner said that you weren't even worthy of being a backup quarterback anymore. Zach Wilson, congratulations on your Ryan Leaf Award.
That's fair.
I'm not kidding. Woody Johnson came out and said we're supposed to have, what we really needed last year was a backup QB, and we clearly didn't have that. Wow.
It's so weird seeing a kid that talented and not being able to find a way to make it work. But it happens. It's
It
the
does.
NFL.
All right. Moving along. We don't have an official name for this award, but it is dubbed the "You Were Probably Drafted Way Too High" award.
Yes, I did go for the obvious pick. It's Bryce Young. I'm sorry. Based on what I just watched, you were definitely drafted too high.
I
There's
mean,
no question.
that's easy.
It is. I went
It's
easy, and I get it, but like, come on.
it's the easy, low-hanging fruit.
Somebody has to do it. There's only two of us here.
That's true. I'm not I'm not mad at you for doing it. I figured you would, which is why I didn't.
Fair.
The gentleman I'm talking about, though, was indeed I believe, well, he was the first official called D end, even though Anderson played D end this year. He was drafted as a linebacker. Um, he was basically the second edge rusher taken off the board. He was taken 7th overall, and it is Tyree Wilson. Based on where you were drafted and what was expected out of you to be playing across from Max XX Crosby, boy, did you suck this year. Yeah, you were drafted too high, buddy. There were other picks that should have gone there for you. Alrighty. The Light Bulb Award. This is given to the player or team who the light collectively or individually went on for. It's a little bit different than most improved because they don't necessarily have to have improved a lot, but you can definitely see something clicked. The light bulb went on. Ding!
Yeah, this one also hurt me in a different way because I had to think about all the players I saw and who I saw, and I had to make a choice that I didn't really like, but it did make sense. We saw this player literally get his light bulb moment in the middle of the season. And unfortunately for me, it happens to be a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. His name's Jordan Love. Like, we saw it happen in real time from him going to being a pretty subpar QB to finally understanding what's going on, and that click happened in the middle of the season. We literally saw it happen in real time.
I also went with a quarterback from the NFC North who, right around mid-season, late season, you saw that click kind of happen. Because whatever happened, he began to really figure it out. And in fact, really helped improve his team down the down the back stretch of the season, and made them not suck as much as they should have sucked. And that man's name is Justin Fields. I watched that light bulb go on and him figure out when to run and how to throw and be better, and really make what I think Chicago's decision much more difficult. Because had he continued struggling, trading him away and keeping the first overall pick was a no-brainer. But where he played so well down that stretch, you kind of go, okay, well, it's starting to come on now. There's something there. I think you have to keep him now. I think you have to trade that pick or keep it and draft Marvin Harrison. But either way, point is that is now a valuable pick that you could trade away. But yeah, no, absolutely. I watched his light bulb go ka-ting, and you were like, he went, oh, that's how you do this. And I think next year, the Bears are probably going to be a team to look out for. And our final award, the Setting Sun Award. This is given to the team or player that, yeah, the sun is starting to set on you. Your dynasty, your career, whatever it is, it's going down. It's time to unplug it and be done. Or you might have a year left in your career, or you might, it's time to empty that dynasty out and reload. You're gonna have to suck for a few years. Who you got?
So I had to think about this one for a bit because I didn't think there was any particularly obvious choices in my books as far as players or teams really went. Yeah, there were some teams that were bad, like obviously the Panthers, but I wouldn't call that a setting sun because like they were expected to be bad.
Yeah,
And as far as the Patriots are concerned, I'm pretty sure I picked them last year, and
yeah,
that's just proven to be true. So it was kind of obvious, right? You
yeah.
can't.
They're kind of finished now.
I was originally going to pick the Chiefs to be here, but
I
I don't
think I
think
did
they're
that
setting
last
anytime
year.
fucking soon. Yeah,
Mm.
I don't think they're setting.
No, I picked the
And while
Packers
I
last year.
Yeah, you picked the Packers last year. And while I could have picked like the Eagles because of like how bad they did in the second half, I don't think that's going to be the same going into next year. Like they still have a lot of good pieces. So I instead went with a team that was kind of middling, who did well last year, and who I'm seeing next year is going to continue to be either worse or continue to be middling. And I picked the Seattle Seahawks. They got rid of Pete Carroll. They brought in a new guy. I'm already got questions about Gino going forward. Now you're bringing in a whole new coach. Yeah, I think their next year or two is going to be a little rough, to be honest with you. And I think they're kind of almost going to be in a pseudo half rebuild phase at this point.
All right, and I again, I thought about a team. I thought about the Steelers. I honestly did. But I think there's still enough talent for them to reload and rebounds. So I'm not overly worried about that. I also thought about the Bills, and I was like, no, there's still enough there as well. They made the playoffs this year. They made a good run. Yeah, there's something there. And I was like, well, who else is on the wrong side and should probably just pull the plug? And there was no other teams that were really like I expected more of them, or they'd had a good run and it's now time to unload. So I looked at a player, and I still think he's got at least a year of football in him. I still think he's got at least a year of football in him. But it's time to start thinking seriously about being done. I don't know, especially considering everything. It's Aaron Rodgers. And my reasoning is this: you're 40, you're coming off an Achilles tear and a surgery to repair that. I think you've got next year in you. But after that, I don't know, especially with that Achilles. I understand it was probably a good surgery and everything else. But, again, you're 40. Most quarterbacks don't play that long. And you really have to. Most.
I was gonna say, you gotta remember that with while you would normally be correct, the last couple years have proven that to be different based upon the fact that they don't get hit nearly as bad anymore. So it's hard to really gauge that now.
Yeah, but he took a lot of shots earlier in his career too.
He did. He
So
thinks he's got several years. We'll see.
I think you've got maybe a year next year, unless you blow your other Achilles.
Yeah,
Which,
I think he wants to go until he's 45, but we'll see.
yeah, but that's why I'm saying we'll have to see how well you come back, how well you can put pressure on that foot and throw. What does your motion look like, and how do you do with the Jets next year? I just being over 40 and having that kind of injury does not fill me with the prospect of hope. Um,
I get it.
like I said, I think your career's got a year left, maybe two, but the sun is definitely setting on you and your career. I'm not saying you're a bad player. I'm not even saying you're going to fail next year. For all I know, the Jets could make the Super Bowl next year. But
Could happen.
it could happen. Wackier things have. But with the injury that you sustained, as long as you don't sustain another big one, I just don't see how you can keep plugging away. I think the Jets are going to be smart. they're probably going to try to find a guy this draft, quarterback-wise, that you can mentor for a couple of years to do the same thing the Packers kind of did. Only I think they're probably going to ask you who you would like to mentor, unlike Green Bay, who was just like, nope, we're doing this. We're not going to tell Aaron. So, I mean, at this point, you got to know that's coming, and you got to know that the sun is starting to really go down on you fast now. You're no longer like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're coming to like 5-ish, 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Yeah. I can understand it. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I think he's still got a couple years left, but we'll see.
We'll see. And that's all of our awards. I did get them all correct.
I think so. I didn't see any that were missed.
I didn't see any that were missed. So, I don't have...
Did we talk about...
Did we miss one?
We did do comeback player, right?
We did come back. Did we do
comeback? Yeah, I
comeback?
think we got them all. I thought we did we? We might not have.
We might not have.
I assume we had the same one, though.
Jolton Joe?
It was Joe.
Yeah, it was Joe.
In case we somehow missed that, it was Joe Flacco.
It was Joe Flacco. We both agreed.
We agreed with the NFL
too.
on that one. Yeah.
Agree with the NFL.
But other than that, yeah, we got them all for sure.
Yeah. All right. I thought about putting Baker there too, and I was like, no, that just doesn't work.
Yeah, I just never thought that quite fit.
So, we are not going to do a hockey this time, primarily because the All-Star game, the All-Star break just ended. There haven't been enough games, in my opinion, for me to want to maneuver my rankings. The only sad thing is the win streak ended. The Edmonton Oilers did not make it to 17 or even 18 games. They did get beat the very first game they had after the All-Star game to stop their streak at 16, which is still tied for second most all-time in NHL history. One behind the 92-93 Penguins, who made it to 17. So, that's still impressive as hell. Still impressive as hell. Alrighty, outside of that, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
God, no.
Alrighty. Well, you look like you need a nap.
I don't know. I'm tired, though.
And for the rest of you, we hope that whatever you put your mind to, you accomplish. Work hard at it. You'll make it. And if you haven't, keep working at it. In the meantime, we'll see you back here again. I don't know if it'll be next week or not, but when we are back, we'll see you back here. Until then, we'll say, stay bearded.